Hey there, good evening. Welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is Bronx Nets program where we talk to reporters and writers and editors and journalists and all different kinds of people who are putting stuff out so you can get the idea of what's going on behind the scenes, so to speak. And in our second segment today, we usually do arts and culture, and we're going to do one of the best dance theaters in the world. Of course, we think that way in the borough of the Bronx, and that'll be our second segment. But to start, we are going to get right down to City Hall and say hello to Jeff Coltin, who's the City Hall bureau chief from my favorite political publication, City and State New York. Nice to see you, Jeff.
You too. I can do a little bit of dancing in the second half of the show if you want to.
I don't. Oh, I apparently did they have the big political festival there? You brought it up.
Yes,
I hadn't thought about it. What do they call
we
that thing?
had the Inner Circle
The
show
inner
this
circle
weekend,
thing.
where
Did you
other
attend?
reporters and myself sing and dance joke songs, parody songs about the mayor and about the president and politics, and then Mayor Adams has a rebuttal. It's a really fun tradition. 100 years old this year. 100 years old from 1923.
And I hadn't anticipated talking about this. Give me the highlight that you say, boy, I saw this.
The highlight, I gotta say, was not the mayor. It was Attorney General Letitia James had a
Yeah.
pre-recorded video that was just hilarious. I mean, she
Oh,
was cracking jokes, insulting the other politicians, which everybody loves. It's very funny. It was
well,
well done.
I'm hoping to read about it maybe in City and State coming up. Anyway, as you know, Jeff, I was very taken with your story. New York City is obsessed with the bad old days. Subtitle: The fear of going backward is growing, but the city is in a much better place today. So I'm going to ask you this: was that article inspired by the Manhattan Institute's production of Gotham: The Fall and Rise of New York? Because we're going to talk about that as well.
Yes, exactly.
Mm.
I heard about this new documentary coming out that kind of looks back over the past 60 years of New York City history and tells this story of New York City basically falling into disorder and crime and a hellish control of the government. And then, as the movie says, and then along comes Rudy Giuliani and cleans the thing up. And along comes Michael Bloomberg and cleans the thing up further. And then the movie ends with, Bill de Blasio with kind of ominous music. And it kind of just gives you the what happens there. You know that what Bill de Blasio
Well,
became.
so it's a political piece. I mean, it's hard to verify that as an historical piece. Maybe there's some aspect of it that needs to be told. And I have to say, you very correctly, right up near the top, said, "Oh, by the way, this was a." I hate to put it. I hate these kinds of stark racial terms, but you said this was a video made by white people who felt that they ordered the city. But of course, black people and people of color were like, wait a minute, this isn't the story of New York City.
Yeah, I mean, look, New York has always, of course, been an incredibly racially diverse city. And I did feel like having a documentary about New York City in the 90s and having one single voice, one single person on camera, a person of color. The rest of them were like 30 interviews were all white. It certainly left out a very big perspective. Now, I'm not saying that there's interesting history here. Don't get me wrong. They talked to a lot of the players, most of whom were white. Let's be frank. City council
Hmm.
speaker, the mayor.
Right.
But there was certainly a perspective missing. But on the bright side, it raised a lot of raised a lot of interesting questions in my mind, and I'm sure many other viewers. It certainly got you thinking.
Well, it got you thinking, but also it got me thinking about what is one of the things that really was really important that we learned from, let's say, the Giuliani administration. And I really think it's the CompStat and the looking at crime as you would try to solve any other problem. And I remember getting having been on the air all this time, getting a video story. It wasn't with Bratton, but it was I forget who the Bronx chief was at the time, and he showed me how they were using at that time we didn't have digital, so they were using little pins to note where crime was. And then he said, well, so that's how we allocate our resources. I think that was something that not only we in New York learned, but everybody learned because of Bratton and Giuliani.
Absolutely. And I mean, gosh, there's no bigger fan of Comstat than our current mayor, Eric Adams. He worked on the
Good point.
Comstat program when he was a police officer back in the
Right.
90s. And now it seems like his answer to everything is let's look at the data. He wants to do a NYCHA stat for public housing, and really look more at statistics. And I think that speaks to this broader sense of New York is always worried about slipping back into the bad old days. Even in the modern day, no matter if you thought Giuliani was the worst mayor we've ever had or the best mayor we've ever had, there does seem to be an agreement that the 90s was a bad time and the 80s were a bad time. And
Specifically because of crime or because of other social issues as well.
well, both. I mean, that's actually the disagreement. I mean, everybody
Yes.
acknowledges the crime.
That's why I asked the question. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the crime is without question. I mean, it was very high, incredible, more than 2,000 murders a year. Now that's down to something like 400. However, the amount of whether it be racial profiling or wholesale throwing people into jail. I mean, the Rikers
Stop and
population
search. Stop.
far
Stop
higher
and
back
search.
in the 90s. Yes. Stop and frisk, stop,
Stop
question,
and
and frisk.
frisk. Yeah.
Um,
Sorry.
and I had a quote. I talked to Keith Wright, former assemblyman, still very active in Democratic.
I have it right in front of me. I would take umbrage to the phrase that Rudy Giuliani saved the city. In a lot of ways, just the opposite. He tore the city apart, if you will, said Keith Wright. There you go. I had it in my notes because that was definitely the quote. Does one measure whether or not the city is doing better or not? That was one of the stories, the intellectual stories I got out of it. How would I really determine, because I have my own feeling about what was good and what was bad and who benefited and who didn't, but how good are we doing? I will tell you, based on your article, I did a little work on crime numbers. New York City of cities is like, in the top 15 in the nation of low crime per capita. That is an extraordinary number. And of course, everybody says New York's a hellhole. Anyway, what do you think about it? How do we
Yeah,
measure how well we're doing?
that is one of the big, greatest debates happening in New York right now. Is that
Mm,
yes, crime is historically low. The big problem is that the crime rate in New York is rising, and if things are moving in the wrong direction, and if that direction is being talked about person to person, if videos are going up on Twitter and Instagram, and there's coverage in the New York Post and the local news, people keep talking about it. And there's
right.
just this feeling that the city is, whether it's, some people think it is unsafe, some people think it's just going in the direction of not being safe. And
Hmm.
that's real. I mean, look, everybody has to acknowledge that there is a widespread perception that the city is going in the wrong direction. I noted in the story that right now, according to polls that have been going back for 25 years, going back to the mid 90s, right now, more people think New York is going in the wrong direction than basically at any time across those 2 decades.
Wow, that's fascinating. And what's interesting to me? So crime is one thing, but then there are people who don't react to crime like that, but are concerned about the social situation. I'm going to give you an example. You mentioned that the New York Post wrote three separate stories in 2021 and 22, declaring that squeegee men, the scourge of the 90s, were back. And I'm going to give you a different perspective of who those people are. And people who live near where I live, if you drive up the ramp on the Major Deegan Expressway to get off the Deegan going southbound at Van Cortlandt Park, very, very often, many times I've seen a woman carrying a baby on her back, which just breaks my heart, selling flowers on Valentine's Day, orange juice or water or whatever she can. And who this woman is not that kind of squeegee man ready to commit a crime. She's somebody, she looks like from somewhere else, an immigrant of some sort, that's a different scourge. And that's the social scourge. So thank you for giving me the forum to bring that up. But I think that's the balance of saying crime is crazy and the social issues are not being dealt with.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's what's so interesting about this narrative of whether New York is going in the wrong direction is that people across the political spectrum and people with so many different political views can agree and disagree on certain things. Like, yes, uh, is somebody selling something on the side of the highway? I mean, is that a sign of disorder and she should be stopped, or is that a sign of poor social services and the city should be providing people like that more opportunities for legal employment? There's just different ways to handle it, different ways to consider it.
Without getting too far into that particular story, a question has arisen: is somebody controlling her? I mean, in some form. I mean, is there somebody? Where does she get those goods? I mean, there's your next investigative story for you. In the long run, what I would like to see is an edited production with somebody else doing a story from the other perspective and balance, and putting the two of them together, and maybe we could get some perspective on that. Anyway, we got about a minute left. What's coming up? What's going on? What are we putting in city and state in the future, in the near future? What are you working on?
Yeah,
Anything
look,
interesting?
outside of looking back at the past, also, of course, looking at the future, the city budget is coming up.
Oh,
And I, of course, encourage all New Yorkers to be reading coverage of that because all the services that are provided to you, whether it's police, libraries, schools,
schools.
everything is potentially facing budget cuts, budget reductions. It's
Yeah.
going to be a big story this year.
And then, what is really a budget about? It's about priorities. And I see a number of notes on store windows and whatever: save our libraries. Do we need libraries? And on the other side, they're too expensive. Boy, shocks me that New York City has come to that point, but that is where we're at. Listen, Jeff, giving us perspective is what you do, among the many things that you do, and we thank you, and Ralph and Annie and Rebecca and all my friends over there at City and State. Thank you so much, and we'll keep going. We'll keep having these dialogues. So important.
Thank you for your support. Read City and State, and thank you for having me on.
I do. I have here's, in case you didn't see it, that's the current issue. It's not far from my grasp. Anyway, Jeff Coltin, the City Hall Bureau Chief from City and State New York. Thank you so much. We are going to take a break, and then we're going to go to BAAD, BAAD, the Bronx Academy for Arts and Dance, coming up right after this.
¿Qué color? Perfecto, mijo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Is it time yet?
It's time.
Let's start time for dinner.
Oh, terrific.
Pasta dinner.
Donating pet food is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Man, it's lonely. Like, going through life lonely.
There is the therapeutic aspect of music, just expressing how you feel. I'm going to talk to Howie about his feelings, make it into a song.
All right, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. We love having Jeff Coltin with us. He does a great job. Switching gears as we usually do in our second segment, we are going to interview right now, I would say, a man about town, Charles Rice-Gonzalez. He is with BAAD, and I have to say it right, BAAD, the Bronx Academy of Arts and Dance, and the home of the Arthur Avila's Typical Theater and the Bronx Dance Coalition. You were part of BAAD from the beginning, right?
From the very start, yeah. Arthur and myself were both the co-founders.
Hmm.
We started we're 24 years. We'll be turning 25 now in December. So yeah, it's amazing. We didn't know what we were doing at the beginning, but anyway, we are so happy that we've had great support in the Bronx and from artists and from supporters and individuals, so that we're still going.
And the current home and the former Saint, or is it still used as a church, or it's the St. Peter's Church off Westchester Square?
Right. Well, St. Peter's has two buildings. It has the big
Oh,
proper
okay.
church where they have the services, and they have a smaller building that we rent. So it's fully ours in terms of rental. And yeah, it's a beautiful sense of history there in Westchester Square, surrounded by a Gothic graveyard, and it's a Gothic revivalist building.
And the
So
Huntington Free Library down the block.
it's down the block. There's a lot of history right in that little corner of the Bronx.
And what did having that space do for BAAD at the now I can't even, stuff blends into me. I've been sitting in this chair for a long time. When did you acquire or move things in there? And what did that I know what it meant, but describe to us what it meant for the Bronx Academy for Arts and Dance.
Well, I mean, at the time we were in the banknote building, the American banknote
Right,
building. We were there for
right.
years, and the conditions got created that made it difficult for us to stay. I'll be diplomatic with that, but there were changes that were there, and the rent was going to be doubled and all that kind of stuff. So we had to find another home. At the time, it was more than what we could afford, and so we were lucky that at the time St. Peter's Church had this building. They had dreamt for a theater to be in there. Center Stage used to do productions there. But they wanted a full-time tenant, like a full-time theater company. So we were looking for a home, and they were looking for a tenant, and it was a match made. And I guess the mother Jody would say in heaven.
No, I think there was a match made in the Bronx.
Yeah.
That's what we want, and gave a very important cultural institution a home that was the right home for it. Anyway, let's talk about the Boogie Down Dance Series 2023. I mentioned to you earlier, we did miss the first one. Was the Brio All-Star Dance Concert, which is nice. For people who don't know, Brio is Bronx recognizes its own from the Bronx Council of the Arts. So I'm presuming that these were people who won Brio Awards and got to show off their talents on, I guess it was last Friday night.
Yeah, Gary. I mean, as you know, the Bronx Council of the Arts has been giving out these awards since 1989. And just last year, BCA turned 60. So BAAD wanted to do something, since we're a space where dance is the anchor art form, that celebrated BCA 60th. And so we did this dance concert, and it was wonderful. We had folks who performed live. We had people who sent in video. We had video testimonies, particularly from the very first Brio winner in dance, Median Soto. She sent the video in. And but we had, it's beautiful to see the generations of dancers and the success of many of them. Jawale Willa was a Brio recipient, and she runs Urban Bushwoman, which is an international company. So the Bronx has produced some amazing performers, and our own Arthur Avila's is a Brio winner, and younger artists like Alethea Pace and many, many, many others, and Yvette from Retumba. So a lot of the winners, and it was great for us to create a space.
They've been celebrated on BronxNet in all different forms and all different programs. So let's just talk about what's coming up. Now, for folks who don't know, we record these Monday. It airs Thursday. So this Saturday, the 29th, is the BAAD Bunny Dance compilation.
We like to have a good time.
Yes, don't we? Okay, so let's see, another group of talented local choreographers for the dance compilation concert, featuring the music of Puerto Rican megastar Ali and Bad Bunny. What are we going to see?
So what we do, one of the staples we do, is we do a compilation dance concert. So that means that like 8 choreographers come and they do short works. We've done several of them themed around a particular singer. We did Nina Simone because Nina Simone, a lot of people dance to her music, and we've done it, but we've had fun. We've done it to Whitney Houston and to Donna Summer, but we've always done kind of homages. But Bad Bunny is popular. He's an ally, a queer ally. And so we decided to do a dance concert. So people are going to come see choreographers doing their own. These are contemporary dancers. These could be hip hop dancers, all kinds of dancers using Bad Bunny music, either in its original form or some kind of edited version. Well, it'll be number after number after number after number of dance concerts, of dance pieces to Bad Bunny.
You know, I have to tell you, this is so important for the Bronx, for people to express themselves, to enjoy themselves. And I read it wrong because I was reading it off the thing, and I said, I don't know if I didn't say it right. He's an ally.
Yeah.
You expressed it right. Bad Bunny is an ally, but people will enjoy it because it'll be music that they like, and then
Mhm.
seeing Bronx people interpret it.
Yeah.
You get a lot of moms and dads coming to watch their kids perform.
We do,
And I don't mean
family.
kids, but
Yeah.
you know, I know they're older too.
We get family members, we get neighbors, we get lovers, we get exes, you know.
And
But
we get
people,
cool people in the Bronx.
yeah, and they come and they come and they enjoy the performances. And then after
Mhm.
every show, Gary at BAD, it's always an opportunity to have a good time and party. So we always turn on the disco ball and the music, and the audience is welcome to
I'm
stay and dance as well.
I'm checking all my boxes. Win, 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 win. Okay, so then Wednesday, May 10th is Dancing While Black,
Yeah.
past.
Mhm.
What are we doing?
So there's three. So Dancing While Black was started by a woman named Paloma McGregor. She's a choreographer. The first place she performed when she came to New York was at BAD. She was dancing with Crystal Brown, who had In Spirit Dance Company. And so Paloma began this initiative called Dancing While Black. And so it means, like, what does it mean for Black dance makers to do work? What is it? You know, how do you define it? What are the aesthetics? So it's been 10 years of our relationship with Paloma. And
Hmm.
so these events are culminating the 10th anniversary celebration. So there's that event on May 10th, but there's two more events that are related. And they're all looking at the past, the present, and the future of choreographers that Dancing While Black has had residencies, has done performances, has done lectures, has done talks. And so we've been so happy that we have worked together with Paloma and Angelus Pulse and the folks there to keep Dancing While Black going and supported at BAD.
You know, what you have just said reminds me of a question I want to ask you about after
Mhm.
we talk about the final piece here as part of the Boogie Down series. Now, I'm going to pronounce this wrong. In Senna?
And Chana.
In Cena, okay, but my Italian friends can really not forgive me if they don't want. This is in Cena presents Little Funerals. That'll be the day after Thursday, May 11th, celebrating 10 years of Italian theater. Do
Yeah.
tell. What do we got?
You know, we love relationships, right? And partnerships. And so so Angelus Pulse is one, and Encena is another one. They've come to us years ago to say, when we came to Westchester Square, they were doing this citywide celebration of Italian theater. And so we said, sure. I mean, there's an Italian community in the Bronx. There's an Italian community that's not too far from us in Westchester Square. But what we do with most organizations is we ask them, how do they resonate? How does what they want to do resonate with BAD's mission? So our mission is to support people of color, queer people, and women. And so usually their work that they bring to us resonate with our mission statement. So we're enjoying a great relationship with them. Folks can come in. The performance will be presented in Italian, and but they will provide subtitles so we could follow along.
Wow.
And in the years that we've done it, it's just been top-notch work. So we invite everyone to come experience it.
And I want to just read I'm going to sell it. I want people to go. It says it's a moving and sweet piece capable of welcoming pain and turning it into a rebirth. Isn't that
Mhm.
beautiful? So the question that occurred to me, based on you talking about the the long relationships with people, where are we at? How do you look if you step back at dance at the participation? Are we doing more? Has it grown a little bit? I mean, of course, you don't have to sell me on culture in the Bronx. It's on every corner, street corner. But from where you sit and you see people come in the performances, where is it at? Are we doing better? We always want more, but what's your perspective?
I think we're doing a lot better. I
A
mean,
lot better.
yeah, I think if we just think about BAD's existence when we started 24 years ago,
Wow.
and we go to now, where there are so many more dance companies, so many more folks. And because there's a community in the Bronx, and we keep fostering the community, whether it's at BAAD, whether it's at Pregones, whether it's at, Lehman, whether it's at the other spaces, that these dancers are finding space and support. And that's what dancers need. They need spaces to rehearse, they need money to get the work done, and opportunities to perform. And so we're doing better on all fronts.
I'm going to add one more ingredient, and
Mm.
that is parents and children who know this is a good thing and a fun thing to do, and helps them personally, and also the framework and the place to do it, whether it be in school, whether it be in a community center. I mean, there's just not enough money in the world to keep funding these things, because we need them more and more. And the more, look, that's my sale. And the more we do it, the more we attend, the more we do these things, the better we'll all be in every way. Anyway, one last thing. We got about a minute and a half.
Wow.
I want to ask you about your writing. You have, you write. I know you write when you can, but you've had some successes and some things going on. What can people look out, and how can they find what you're working on?
Well, they could always go to my website, charlesricegonzalez.com. That's an easy way to find it. But I've been working on a novel called Hunts Point, which is somewhat of a follow-up to Chulito. And I had a section of it, excerpt published in Asterisk, Asterix. So if people go there, they can read that excerpt, get a little bit of preview of the novel. But being a writer has been supported through the work that we've done with BAAD, and so I'm always grateful for the support that BAAD has given me, because it gave me the courage to be a writer. And I'll just say one last thing: we are part of the Boogie Down Dance Festival. Is that we have Rompe Forma, which is on May 30th and 31st. And that is the New York premiere of this documentary that celebrates experimental dance, that was in Puerto Rico for many years. And Arthur Aviles and Carmelita Tropicana and Coco Fusco, and amazing poets like Miguel Agarin and Sandra Maria Esteves. An incredible documentary. We're proud to have the New York premiere on May 30th and 31st.
Oh, I somehow I didn't see that. So that's May 30th and May 31st. So the website is the place to find all this stuff and get there. And culture in the Bronx, it's our culture. People don't even know we exist, and it's just so wonderful. So what is that website? And let's make sure people check it out.
It's pretty simple. It's BAAD, BAAD, Bronx.org. So people just go to www.baadbronx.org, and you can get all this information on BAAD, on Arthur Aviles Typical Theater, and all the things that we have going on there with our children's program for 6 to 9-year-olds. There's lots to discover.
Well, once you walk in, you won't want to walk out. That's the point. Listen, Charles, big hugs to you, to Arthur, and let's stay BAAD, right?
Definitely.
BAAD of the Bronx. Listen, you're the best. Gary. Thank you. Folks, what an enjoyable, I always say if I enjoyed it and if I learned something, we had a good show. So we did with Jeff and with Charles. And next week, we'll see you. Have a good night.